Everyone, my name is Hadria Stewart and I'm a member of the Kingston Technical High School family. I'll be your teacher of English this afternoon. In today's lesson, we'll be looking at vocabulary development. Let's get started. So by the end of today's session, candidates should be able to read an article on climate change, select and discuss the meanings of some unfamiliar words used in the text, and suggest some synonyms for the words selected. Now, our syllabus focus this afternoon is on reading and specifically using reading to develop vocabulary. So using reading to develop vocab. The aim of this unit is to develop the learner's skills in understanding and responding to written vocabulary in a range of different texts at varying levels of complexity, and to further develop vocabulary by using reference material. Now we're going to look at climate change glossary. So we're going to look at some words that are related to climate change. Now this says on your screen that the jargon of climate change can be hard to grasp. Have you ever met the word jargon? Do you have any idea what it means? Are there any clues in the sentence that you can use to figure out what the word means? Look closely. So the jargon of climate change can be hard to grasp. Interesting. All right? So let us look at what jargon means. So it's actually a noun. And if you're hearing it for the very first time, make sure that you have your notebooks and your pens and you are writing, okay? Now, jargons are special words or expressions used by a profession or group that those outside of that profession might find difficult to understand. So we talk about the legal jargon, you know, lawyers have their way of using some technical terms that the ordinary man doesn't understand, and the doctors have them as well. So different professional groups have some technical terms that they use, we call those jargons. All right, so some synonyms for jargons are specialized language or technical language. So yes, we have some jargons related to climate change. Now, City and Guilds is producing a word list. Every year we have a word list that accompanies our theme. Now that word list is going to be available very, very soon, but you can go ahead and start doing your research and start finding some of the jargons associated with this year's theme. So by the time they get the list, you're already familiar with most of the words and the terms. So we're going to look at a few of them this afternoon, right? And as I said, please make sure that you are taking notes. So let's start with adaptation, right? So when we talk about climate change, you're likely to hear the word adaptation, and as you write about climate change, you can use a word as well. What is adaptation? It's action that helps cope with the effects of climate change. For example, construction of barriers to protect against rising sea levels, or conversion to crops capable of surviving high temperatures and drought. Make a note. Then we have adaptation fund. Right? So this is different from adaptation now. So this is a fund for projects and programs that help developing countries cope with the adverse effects of climate change. It is financed by a share of proceeds from emission reduction programs, such as the Clean Development Mechanism. Another term is biofuel. Yes, biofuel. This is a fuel derived from renewable biological sources, including crops such as maize and sugarcane and some form of waste. So when we talk about climate change, make sure you know what biofuel means. You can also hear or read about carbon capture and storage. Yes, carbon capture and storage. This is the collection and transport of concentrated carbon dioxide gas from large emission sources such as power plants. The gases are then injected into deep underground reservoirs. Carbon capture is sometimes referred to as geological sequestration, so bear that in mind. Then we have carbon dioxide, CO2. Carbon dioxide is a gas in the Earth's atmosphere. It occurs naturally and is also a byproduct of human activity such as burning fossil fuels. It is the principal, or we can say it is the main greenhouse gas produced by human activity. Remember, principal is one of those words with multiple meanings. So in this case, it is the main greenhouse gas produced by human activity. And we have carbon dioxide equivalent, right? So we have 6 greenhouse gases are limited by the Kyoto Protocol, and each has a different global warming potential. The overall warming effect of this cocktail of gases is often expressed in terms of carbon dioxide equivalent, the amount of CO2 that would cause the same amount of warming. And then we get down to our theme, climate change, right? It's a pattern of change affecting global or regional climate as measured by yardsticks such as average temperature and rainfall, or an alteration in frequency of extreme weather conditions. This variation may be caused by both natural processes and human activity. And pay attention to this sentence, global warming is one aspect of climate change. One aspect. So there are many aspects to climate change. Global warming is just one. All right, so these words and terms you need to add to your vocab as you prepare for your exams under the theme climate change. Now, I did some research, and I know that you're home doing your research as well, and there's a whole lot of information on the internet. So I did some research, and I found a Gleaner article, and it's entitled Effects of Climate Change Seen Across Jamaica. And this one was published on Tuesday, October 6, 2015, and written by Jodian Gilpin, right? So it's very, very important that we do our research to find out the information that is out there related to the theme so that you can get the knowledge that you need. So it says, and this is only a part of the article. It was quite a lengthy article, so I just took out a section of it. So as a child, Joan Buchanan always anticipated the summer holidays when she would accompany her parents to the farm to reap a range of crops which would be flourishing after the May or June rains. And as I read, I want you to read along with me, and I want you to identify the words that are unfamiliar to you, because our focus this afternoon is on vocabulary development, and we are trying to expand our vocab by reading. She still recalls the joy of going from tree to tree, sampling and reaping seasonal fruits and grown provisions such as mango, Otaheite apple, plantain, cassava, and callaloo, among others. Now, 59 years old, Joan has picked up where her parents left off, and now she uses the trade to provide for her family. However, the trees have become frugal in their offerings, and the bountiful summer harvest she could anticipate is a thing of the past. This year was no normal summer. In fact, the season hasn't been normal for the past 2 years. In an interview with the Gleaner, the resident of Seaforth, St. Thomas, lamented the devastating effects a prolonged drought has been having on her livelihood. By extension, the drought is one of several climate change consequences being experienced by Jamaica. The water shortage and the drought have been taking a toll on me. Right now, there is nothing much on my farm, just some plantains which, for the most part, break in the middle because they are not able to grow. I can hardly provide for my family. I have to be trying really hard to survive, the mother of 5 disclosed. So we're seeing an example there of a direct speech, and we're seeing evidence of it. It is in quotation marks. So those are her exact words. Moving on, it says, I remember the days when we didn't have to worry much about crops because we had water and there was adequate rainfall. This farming is what my parents used to send me to school, and as an adult, I also do it full-time, and this is the worst I have seen it, Joan admitted. A number of small island developing states, including Jamaica, have been reeling from what has been described as the worst drought in 5 years. This has been largely linked to the strong El Niño phenomenon. The last 2 years have also been the hottest on record, the effects of which Joan and other farmers have been struggling to cope with as well as to understand. I don't know where this heat comes from, but the time is so hot. Sometimes I feel as if my breath is going to stop. The heat is also very bad for some crops because at this time of the year I would be reaping sorrel to sell. But things have changed, she told the Gleaner. So we have another direct speech. So when you get your source documents to read, of course, you know I'm going to encourage you to read the source documents more than once. So you read generally to get an idea of what the document is about, what specifically it is talking about. We know the theme already. What is it saying about climate change? And then you realize that you may find some words there that are unfamiliar to you. So this is where your knowledge of context clues will come in handy, and also your knowledge of prefixes and suffixes will come in quite handy. So I have selected some words from the extract, and we're going to focus on those today, and I want you to make note, okay? So let us look at the first word, anticipate. Maybe you have heard it before, maybe you have not. Well, it is a verb, and it means regard as probable, expect, or predict. So when you anticipate something, you know, you're saying it is likely to happen, right? You expect it to happen, all right? And we can use it in a sentence. She anticipated scorn on her return to the theater. All right, and then now we want to think about some synonyms. Remember, City and Guilds is going to test your knowledge of synonyms. So we want to think of some synonyms, some words that are similar in meaning to anticipate. So we can think of expect, foresee, predict, think likely, forecast, prophesy, and foretell. Now, the word also means to guess or to be aware of what will happen. Yes, you guess what will happen and take action in order to be prepared. And in this particular case, you can use it in a sentence like this. They failed to anticipate a full-scale invasion. So they failed to predict or to take action knowing what is likely to happen. Now, here are some other synonyms. So we have preempt, forestall, intercept, second guess, beat someone to it, beat someone to the draw, beat someone to the punch, and some of these synonyms are idioms. All right, so you have to make sure that you know these idioms and know what they mean, because we know that idioms do not mean exactly what they say. All right, and also look forward to. And we can use anticipating in a sentence. We can say Stephen was eagerly anticipating the break from the routine of business. Now, as you add these words to your personal vocabulary, I want you to use them in sentences and try to see if you can create some sentences related to the theme of climate change. Okay, now let's go to the word flourishing. Have you ever heard that one before? Okay, yes. So it's an adjective. So it's describing something, right? Or can describe someone. So it means developing rapidly and successfully, thriving. So we can talk about a flourishing career. So you're doing very well in your career, right? So that is flourishing. And then we move from flourishing now to look at frugal. Have you ever heard that one? All right. Now, it is an adjective, so it is describing, and it means sparing or economical as regards money or food. So you use those sparingly, you use those really wisely. So we can say, I'm a bit too frugal to splash out on designer clothes. So I'm too careful with my money, I'm too economical with my money to splash out on designer clothes. That's what you're saying. Now, what are some synonyms that we can use if we don't want to use frugal? Right? So we can talk about thrifty, we can talk about sparing, economical, saving, careful, cautious, prudent, provident, unwasteful, yes, not wasteful, sensible, canny, and self-denying. So these are some synonyms that we can use to replace frugal. Frugal also means simple and plain and costing little. So it means simple and plain and costing little. So we can talk about a frugal meal, a very simple meal, right? Very simple. And some words that we can use to describe frugal are meager, scanty, scant, insufficient, plain, simple, moderate, temperate, inexpensive, cheap, economical, and energy efficient. Then we go on to our next word, and yes, all of these words came from our Gleaner article about climate change, okay? So we have the word bountiful. And remember, well, the good thing about your exam is that you can take a dictionary in the exam with you. So if you're not able to use context clues to figure out the meanings of the words, then you have your dictionary at hand. So make sure you get a dictionary from now, okay? So you will have your dictionary with you, but you still want to develop the vocab before you go in the exam. That's still a plus. So we're looking at the word bountiful, and it's another adjective, so we can use it to describe, and it means large in quantity. It means abundant. Yes, abundant. So the ocean provided a bountiful supply of fresh food. Yes, so we can use any of these synonyms to replace bountiful in the sentence. So we can use abundant, plentiful, ample, bumper, super abundant, that's extreme, right? Inexhaustible, prolific, profuse, teeming, copious, considerable, vast, immense, great, or liberal. So we could actually say the ocean provided a liberal supply of food, or a bumper supply or super abundant supply of fresh food. Bountiful also means giving generously. So we can say this bountiful God has thought of everything. So this God who is so kind has thought of everything. And some synonyms are generous, magnanimous, giving, open-handed, free-handed, unselfish, ungrudging, unstinting, unsparing, free, liberal, lavish, and indulgent. I'm sure that some of these are unfamiliar to you, so make sure that you are writing them down and make sure that you practice, practice, practice. When you're sending out your text messages, use some of them. When you're writing your sample paragraphs, use some of them. When you're writing your sentences, use some of them. Then we have lamented. It's an adjective, and we can talk about the late lamented, right? It's a conventional way of describing someone who has died, yes, or something that has ceased to exist. It no longer exists. All right, so we can talk about, and this is a phrase now and not a sentence, we can talk about the late and much lamented Leonard Bernstein, so we can add more information to it and talk about him. And here are some of the synonyms that we can use. We can use dead, expired, departed, gone, no more, passed on, passed away. And some of these may be actually considered to be more favorable than the lamented. So we say these are examples of euphemism, right? So add these to your vocab. And as I said, practice, practice, practice. Now, devastating. Probably you've heard it before, and maybe now many persons are using the word devastating because of what has happened as a result of the heavy rainfalls. So it's another adjective. So most of the words, not all, but most of the words that we've extracted from the article are actually adjectives. So it means highly destructive or damaging. Not just destructive or damaging, highly, extremely. So we can talk about a devastating hurricane. Yes, so it did great damage, and I'm sure that you have seen some pictures lately of flooding and so on caused by, so in some cases, hurricane, right? So here are some synonyms that we can use. So instead of saying the hurricane was devastating, maybe you're tired of using devastating, or you don't like the word, you can use destructive, ruinous, disastrous, catastrophic, calamitous, or cataclysmic. Some people like to use what they call big words, all right? So you may be one of those persons. So you learn the big words that means the same thing as the small word, and you use those when you write. Now, when you have a knowledge of these words and you take a second read at the source document or my extract that I used today, you're going to find that you're going to have a greater understanding of the passage. Right? So one of the best ways to increase your vocabulary is by reading. Yes. So you know what I'm going to say. Read, read, read. And there's so much information out there on climate change. A whole lot. So you read and you make notes and you share in class and you write as well. And remember my challenge. Write that article and send it to me. All right, now devastating also means causing severe shock, distress, or grief. You can hear some devastating news, yes. So causing severe shock, distress, or grief. So the news came as a devastating blow, and that is going to hit hard, okay? So what are some synonyms now that we can use to replace devastating? So we can use shattering, shocking, traumatic, overwhelming, crushing, extremely upsetting, distressing, severe, savage, and terrible. All right? So all of these are similar in meaning to devastating. And remember what the thesaurus is, that we've said it before, the thesaurus is your synonyms dictionary. So if you were to look in the thesaurus for devastating, you're not going to see any definition. You're just going to see a series of words that mean the same or almost the same as devastating. So remember, you can also go in the exam with your thesaurus, and in some cases you can find a 2-in-1, a dictionary and a thesaurus combined. Make sure you get one of those, or you take both the dictionary and the thesaurus with you so that you can go in the exam and work towards that distinction. The word can be used informally as well. Now, when you look in the dictionary, you'll realize that the dictionary sometimes has formal and informal uses. So informally, devastating means extremely impressive or effective. And we could use it in a sentence such as this one: she had a devastating wit. Okay? And what are some of the synonyms now that we can use to replace devastating? We have gorgeous, stunning, glamorous, dazzling, ravishing, and striking. Okay, so she had a striking wit. I have used one of my synonyms to replace the word. Then we have the word prolonged. Maybe you've heard it before. It's an adjective, all right, and it means continuing for a long time or longer than usual, lengthy. So something that is prolonged is lengthy. So we can say the region suffered a prolonged drought. So they had a drought for a very, very long time. What are some synonyms that we can use for prolonged? We're tired of using the word prolonged and we want to use something else. So we can use continuous, ongoing, steady, continual, continuing, constant, and running. Any one of those can be used, similar in meaning. All right? Now let's look at toll. And when I say toll, I know that something will pop in your mind, right? You may be thinking of the highway. You may be thinking of the toll road, right? Good. So toll can be a noun and it can be a verb. Now, when you look in the dictionary, look carefully for the part of speech as well. And remember, we said that one word can have multiple meanings. So toll as a noun means a charge payable to use a bridge or road. So we can talk about motorway tolls, okay? And what are some synonyms for toll? Charge, fee, payment, levy, tariff, dues, tax, duty. So any one of those can be used as a synonym for toll. Now, toll can also mean the number of deaths or casualties arising from a natural disaster, from a conflict, or from an accident. Okay? And in this case, we can talk about the toll of dead and injured mounted. So the toll of the dead and injured is increasing. The number is going up. What are some of the synonyms that we can use for toll in this regard? Number, count, tally, total, running total, grand total, and sum. As a verb, it means to charge a toll for use of a bridge or a road. And in our example, the transport minister opposes tolling existing roads. All right, and then we have the word reeling, which is a verb. All right, present participle, it means to wind something onto a reel by turning the reel. So we can say sailplanes are often launched by means of a wire reeled in by a winch. It also means bringing a fish attached to a line by turning a reel and winding in the line. So we can say he reeled in a good perch, right? Or it also means to lose one's balance and stagger or lurch violently. So this is one that has multiple meanings. So to lose one's balance and stagger or lurch violently. Example, he punched Cody in the air, sending him reeling. So you can picture Cody staggering, right? And some synonyms: stagger, lurch, sway, rock, stumble, totter, wobble, falter, waver, swerve, pitch, and roll. And the word also means to walk in a staggering or lurching manner, especially while drunk, yes. So we can talk about the two, we can say the two reeled out of the bar, arm in arm. And the last one is phenomenon, which is a noun, and it simply means a fact or situation that is observed to exist or happen, especially one whose cause or explanation is in question.